Hey y'all, my name is Priscilla and welcome back to my channel, Bookie Charm. For today's video, I'm going to be doing the Q&A for reaching 1,000 subscribers. So I put out a video a few months ago asking y'all to send me questions so I could do a Q&A for thanking you for reaching 1,000 subscribers. Maybe you'll get to know me a little bit better, and maybe any new subscribers that have come since then will watch this video and know a little bit more about me and what you're getting by subscribing to my channel. So let's jump into these questions. The first couple of questions come from Gande over at Latinx Magic and asked, what are some of your favorite podcasts? Maybe if it's easier, what type of podcasts are your favorites? I tend to like podcasts that are very talk show-like, that are very conversational, things that I can listen to that aren't something that really need my full attention to, so I can listen to while I'm working or while I'm driving maybe. And what comes to mind first is In the Thick, which is a podcast. I believe their tagline is a podcast about news from a POC perspective. I really enjoy that podcast. That's about a bi-weekly podcast, I believe. There's another podcast called Tea with Queen and Jay, which is a podcast from a Black feminist race nerd perspective. I think that's their tagline. They're both two Black women from the Bronx, I believe. They're both from New York, and I really enjoy their perspective on things. Theirs tend to be very long, so you need like a lot of time, but they're a weekly podcast as well. Right now, I'm really trying to keep my mind off of things. So music podcasts are also a fave of mine. I really like Radio Menea, which is a podcast from two Latinx queer friends that have very different tastes in music, and theirs tend to be shorter, like 30-minute long episodes, and they will pick a specific genre or a theme maybe, or an interview with an artist. All of their music tastes and recommendations are specifically Latinx people, because some other Latinx podcasts will include artists from Europe or Spain, for example. So I really like that. I really love their taste in music. That's another great one. And then Kanda also asked, what's a trope that you love in your romance? Maybe what's a trope you want to get into in a romance? I feel like my answers are pretty basic, but I like second chance romance. I like the idea of having a history with someone, having that foundational groundwork, that first meet, that meet cute, that whatever history they had in the past and coming together in the end, because I like the idea of fate bringing lovers together. I like seeing them work through past issues. I like that it doesn't have that insta-lovey feel because they've already kind of worked through that at another time. So I really love second chance romance. A trope that I want to get into, I don't know if it's a trope, but more of a subgenre in romance that I really want to get into, is paranormal romance. Every time I hear other booktubers talk about paranormal romance, I'm intrigued, but every time I want to pick one up myself, I feel intimidated. I don't know if it's like the fated mates thing doesn't jive with me, or maybe it's something that I'm really apprehensive of that I don't think I will jive with, so I get pretty scared before I pick one up. But generally speaking, paranormal romance, so I guess maybe fated romance. I'm not sure of a lot of popular tropes in paranormal, but that's something I'm interested into looking into at least. Then Kazan over at Always Doing said, I love your travel vlogs, so I was thinking, how do you pick books for trips? Do you read different things on work trips versus trips for fun? I do try to have a specific format of book, a number of formatted books, just for convenience. I like to have like an audiobook, an ebook, and a physical book on hand, just in case whatever the situation presents itself while you're traveling. You never know what's going to happen. For trips though, I do definitely like to have a nonfiction, because I think it's just a nice way of separating my anxiety of what's going on out there in the plane, in the traveling, and in the book I can focus on something that's real. Not really so much for vacations. So for vacations, I tend to like shorter works. So maybe I'll take some poetry or something that I know I will pick up at some point, but not force myself to like sit through for an entirety, or be able to work my way through quickly in spurts, because when I travel for fun, I'm not really going to be reading for fun. Mostly I'm going to be out doing things and being with people. And then Kazan asks a not so bookish question, if I don't mind answering. How tall are you? I've been surprised meeting booktubers in person and no one is the height I thought they would be. This is such a true statement, because I've met booktubers, some booktubers in the past, mostly at Booknet Fest, and everybody is a different height than what you expect. No matter what you expect, it's always different. Being a booktuber on camera and watching other booktubers, I always picture people like the same height as me, unless they specifically say like, hey, I'm 5'10", and I'm like, oh wow, you're way taller than me. So yeah, I don't mind saying that I'm 5'2". So I'm a shorty. I'm very short. I don't think that I give off like any tall bitch energy, but yeah, I'm short. And I think that when I met other people at BookNet Fest last year, what they were most interested in was my height in reference to my sister Yvette. I'm not going to give that away. Yvette can tell you herself. But yeah, no one is the height that they expect they are. Let me know if you thought that I was taller than 5'2", because I'm not. Jocelyn over at Yogi with the Book asked, what's your favorite thing to cook with Rigo? Rigo is my partner, and we do like to cook together a lot, but recently we haven't been doing that much. I think that's mostly because of the pandemic and because I hate doing dishes. I actually like baking, but I hate doing dishes and the cleanup work afterwards. So the way my mind works is if I don't bake, I don't have to clean up. So I haven't been doing that as much lately. Rigo has been really sweet about it though, with all the stress that I've been having, and he's actually been making me pancakes quite a bit. I really like that he made me these strawberry cream cheese pancakes recently that were like amazing. And then Jocelyn also asked, not really a question, but tell us more about your dog, please. Of course, I would love to talk about Arcanine. So Arcanine is my 4-year-old German Shepherd. She is a handful. We got her as a puppy when she was 8 weeks old, about, I would say. And we had moved into our house actually a few months before that. So it was like one of the first big steps, I think, that we had together as a couple. We had our house for a few months, and then we're like, okay, time for a puppy. We've been talking about wanting to get a dog for a long time. And my grandma was actually in Mexico, and her cousin's German Shepherd had just had babies, and she said, hey, do you want one? And of course we did. So she brought 2 home, one for herself and one for us. And she is a huge personality. I think she's like pretty stereotypical Slytherin. She's the kind of person that really wants your attention. I talk about her like a person. Yes, I said person, but she's the kind of like animal that really wants your attention but doesn't want you to know that she wants your attention, you know? One of my favorite videos, maybe if I could find a clip of it, is when she was a puppy and she was really small and she was barking at herself in her own reflection. I think that first moment when your puppy barks at itself thinking it's another dog is like pretty adorable. But yeah, she's a lot of my heart. She's our first child. And I work from home a lot, so she tends to be the only person that I talk to during the day. And she keeps me a lot of company, and I don't know what I'd do without her. The next question comes from Jacqueline over at 6 Minutes From Me, who says, I'd love to hear which locations you hope to travel to this year. I had big plans for traveling this summer. My family was going to go to Mexico this summer, both my side of the family and Rio's side of the family. So we were going to actually go at least twice this year, which I was really looking forward to. That's a trip that obviously isn't going to happen. June is already upon us, and we were, I think, planning on going in June and July. So that's not happening. Jacqueline also asked, what is your most anticipated 2020 release? Actually, we're halfway through the year now, so this probably made more sense to answer in January. But the next release I think that's going to be coming out, I'm looking most forward to, is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Silvia Moreno-Garcia just can't do any wrong in my book. And this is her first, I think, suspense horror novel. And it's a Gothic story about a woman in Mexico, a socialite, maybe lives in a haunted house that maybe has some mysteries she's got to solve. I'm not too sure. I'm going in pretty blind, but I trust Silvia Moreno-Garcia with pretty much anything. So I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, that beautiful cover was the first draw, but the first reason that drew me to it. But I'm really excited for that book. Cynthia over at Book Whimsy said, what inspires you in life, at work, in your reading, or creatively? Whew, that's a question, huh? What inspires me? I changed jobs last year, so I feel like I have like this answer for work memorized pretty well. Being able to come to a new job and take everything that I'm learning, because that's a really good opportunity to ask a lot of questions and learn on a lot of things. And being able to share that with someone else, sort of like pass the torch onto someone else and mentor someone else, I think is really rewarding. And it's something that I've done at other jobs, and it's something that I hope I can do one day at this new job. In life, I think similarly, but not really. What inspires me most every day is giving back to my family. And a lot of that comes from my experiences as a Mexican American person, as a person from a community of immigrants who fully realizes that the sacrifices others have made for me have gotten me to the place I am today. So being able to show my parents that their sacrifices means something, that I am happy and successful, I think inspires me to get up every single day. And for my grandparents, I want to give them like every ounce of happiness that I can pour into them is what I want to give them back as saying thank you, which is I think the biggest thank you that I could ever give them for what they've done. In reading, I don't know. Reading from other women of color, from reading from stories from people's voices that I think need to be heard, and being able to share that with others, I think is really rewarding. Being able to be creative on this channel, I think inspires me most creatively. Yeah, that's what inspires me most. Ashley over at Don't Have a Degree in Reading asked me a few questions as well. She says, what is the first and last book that you saw yourself in a character? Thank you so much for asking me this question, Ashley, because I don't know how I could get through my first Q&A without talking about the Love Sugar Magic series. So I have here Dash of Trouble is book 1, and then book 2 is A Sprinkle of Spirits, and book 3, most recently just released and published, is A Mixture of Mischief. These 3 books have the main character Leo, and I saw myself so much in her because it was the first Mexican American character that was curious and wanted to have this sense of belonging to her family, who doesn't speak Spanish growing up, and who just has a really ambitious plan for herself and for the friendships that she's going to make and maintain, and the witch that she's going to become, and the legacy that she's going to hold and carry on with her family's name. All of that I saw myself in, and I feel like this isn't the first Latinx character I've read from in a book, but it's definitely the first that I connected to like so heavy. And other Latinx characters in other books that I've read for school, for instance, often had this thread through them of religion, of symbolism, and inevitably of misogyny and toxic masculinity and machismo that really disconnected me from those characters. So this was the first character I read from that didn't have any of that crap. And I love it for that, and I love it for the wholesome middle grade that it is, and for really introducing me to middle grade again as an adult. So Leo. And the last character I saw myself in was definitely Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is a Nickelodeon series that was just re-released for streaming on Netflix this past May, and I binged it with Rigo. We watched it like over a week, all 3 seasons, and after I finished the series, I picked up the graphic novels, which actually take place right after the end of season 3, with the first generation of the Avatar group. Katara is a waterbender, which same, I would definitely be a waterbender, but she's also very compassionate, very nurturing, very motherly, very annoying at times. She's kind of a know-it-all, but I feel like her intentions are always pure and good and for others, and she's a healer and a fighter at the same time, and I feel like that's what I aspire to be, a healer and a fighter. So I really see myself a lot in Katara. Ashley also says, what are some musicians and or movies that we'd be surprised to know that you love? This is a question I've thought about, and I don't really have a good answer for, because I feel like I'd be making assumptions about your assumptions. So the only way I think I'm going to answer is I'm going to share some music vinyls that I love so much that I went out and bought and purchased, and maybe one of those would be surprising to you. Okay, so first up we have Disclosure. This is my favorite EDM group. I've seen them twice now. Then we have Acceptance Phantoms, Before They Broke Up. This is like one of my favorite albums ever. All the songs on this are really great. This is kind of like high school me. Then we have Kid Cudi, which is Man on the Moon 2. This is probably college me. I love this CD and album in college, and I have a lot of great love for Kid Cudi. And then we have my Deftones album. So I'm also wearing a Deftones shirt. I've heard people were surprised that I really love Deftones, and that's one of the groups that actually brought me and Rigo together. We've seen them so many times in concert. Really love Deftones. Those are a few musicians. As for movies, I don't really know about movies. I have but I don't really think any of them are surprising. Like, I really love Book of Life. I really love Pacific Rim and Mulan. Those are my favorites. Probably not surprising, but there you are. So my camera just turned off because I've been recording for too long. But to the last question that Ashley asked was, what is your favorite thing about yourself? I think my favorite thing about myself is that I'm super loyal and dependable. I think I like that about myself most. Andrea over at Book Ramble said, what's your favorite movie of the decade? My favorite movie of the decade, the first thing that comes to mind is Arrival. It's the kind of movie that has the kind of science fiction that I love so much. I think it's based on a short story by Ted Chiang, I believe. I've never read the short story, but it's about first contact with aliens and about what the future may hold now that we have all this new information and knowledge. And it's got this really interesting take on linguistics and time travel and existence and parallel selves and possibilities and maybe multiverses. So I haven't actually watched that movie in a few years, but yeah, I really love Arrival. So that's probably the movie of the decade for me. And then Jen over at Remembered Reads asked about Arcanine again. So hopefully I provided enough footage for Arcanine for you in that. But she also asked, I've talked about a lot about picture books over the past year. Which were my favorites? If not, did you notice many differences in books that are jointly aimed at the kids and their parents and ones that are more child focused? So I'll just show them to you here. One of them is Alma y Cómo Obtuvo su Nombre by Juana Martinez-Neal. This is a story about a young girl whose parents she's named after, and grandparents and relatives she's named after because she has a very, very long name. And I really love the artwork in this. It's especially beautiful. It's very classic, black and white, and it really works for me. So this is an example. But really love that book. Then we have dónde, eres, which is the Spanish translation of Yamile Méndez's book. This is a book about a young girl who doesn't know where she's from, and one day her grandfather takes her on her journey to tell her where she's from. And it's more than just a place, it's within your heart. And I really love that message, and I really love the story, and of course the artwork. I think you need to have, to answer your question, as an adult, you need to have a great combination of not only a narrative, but also illustrations and graphic material that tell the story as well. That perfect blend and mix is what I look for in a picture book. And I don't think kids look for that necessarily, but I haven't really read picture books with kids, so that's hard to really say for sure. Then we have, of course, Drawn Together by Minh, which I talked about in my Asian Readathon vlog recently. This is a story about a young boy and who's Vietnamese American and his Vietnamese father who have a language barrier and who find a connection, a bridge to that gap by drawing art together. And I really love it. The last book I have is Dreamers by Yuyi Morales. This is a book about a Mexican-American woman and her baby who are immigrants traveling from Mexico to the US and who find a love of literature and books and libraries. And it's got a lot of the textiles and photos and things. Its own voices story. All these books I think are actually own voices. But it's got a lot of memorabilia from her family, her life, her journey, that's photocopied into this book, and I thought that was a really, really unique touch, and I really love it for that. So my next question is from Jessie, and it says, I'm a new Booktube viewer. Which channels would you suggest to check out? Also, are you looking forward to any book conventions? Well, I think I'm due to do a Booktube shout out video, and I've never done one because I get really nervous about leaving people out and making people feel like I don't appreciate their channels if I don't shout them out in a shout out video. I think if you're looking for new Booktube content and creators that I really like, the quickest way is to look at my YouTube main channel, my creator channel. I have a sidebar where I include some favorite booktubers, and it's randomized and it changes every time you refresh that page. So you can definitely check that out and get some quick recommendations for some booktubers that I really love. All of them are great creators. All of them deserve a subscribe, and all of them are really creating some really good content. So I would definitely check that out. As for Bookers conventions, the main one that I always look forward to is BookNet Fest, which is taking place in August this year. But I'm not sure if anything's happening this year with the pandemic, but that's one that I really love. I also recently went to my first Texas Book Festival, and I wouldn't mind going to that again if that happens. That I think is usually around October. Those are two I really love. love, and I wouldn't mind, of course, going to again this year if it's safe to do so. And then Allison Rose asked me, what is a book, fiction or non, that has a deep impact on you as a person that maybe changed you or your worldview in some way? This is always forever going to be an Octavia Butler book. And one day I will reread this series and formally review it for this channel, because it's that book that definitely changed my life in a way, which is Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. And I recently got this really beautiful new edition, this box set that has the two hard book covers and this really great cover art. Parable of the Talents and Parable of the Sower are dystopians that follow Lauren Alamina, who is a woman that's creating her own religion. And it takes place in this world that's apocalyptic, that has this dictator of an American president that's gone through this really bad war. It's a really grim world, but I feel like this creation of a new religion, this idea of setting your own path and going to other worlds, because that was where Butler was taking these characters, really impacted me. And the idea that change is God, and that the change that you make influences your future and other people's, and that you really pave the path forward no matter what circumstances. I think all of that really spoke so much to me. So in short, the Earthseed duology, definitely due for a reread, and now I have the hard books that I could do that if I want to eventually. For a non-bookish question, Allison Rose also said, who was your favorite teacher in elementary school and what made them awesome? I really love this question, and I wish I had a better answer for it, but I was actually in between two schools. Elementary, I started off at one school, and in second grade, I went to another. I was the kind of kid that really wanted to make friends, that really wanted people to like me. And I remember one year, that second grade year at my new school, I had created this solar system drawing at home for fun, because I got a new crayon box set or something. And I was really proud of it, and I wanted my teacher to let me present it to class, even though it had nothing to do with the lesson plan, with what we were talking about. And she let me do it, and it was like crickets. It was one of the most mortifying experiences that I've had as a young kid. Nobody really knew what to say or what to do, and I didn't know what to say once nobody reacted. But I really appreciate Miss Rodriguez, my second grade teacher, for allowing me that platform, for giving me a voice to speak to something that I obviously wanted to share with others. I feel like that's the first time that someone's ever done that, especially a teacher. So she's probably my favorite. She's definitely the most memorable, but one of my favorite elementary school teachers. And then Shannon from That's So Poe, and actually her husband Shish, has a question for me. He wanted to know which book I've read that changed my mind about the most, either from what I expected going in, or how you felt about it at the beginning versus the end. You can tell Shish that he stumped me, because I have to go ahead and look at my Goodreads to see if I can come up with a good answer for this question, because I know that this has happened. So an easy answer for this, I think, is going to be The Storm Runner by J.C. Cervantes. I've talked about this book before as being one of my most disappointing reads, and it definitely was, because I went into it expecting to love it. So much potential, and just failed. And that's a book that I definitely changed from the first chapter to the end, really unexpectedly. And then Shannon asked, I'd like to know what your favorite Latinx cultural practice is in your family, holiday food, etc. So I really love, for Easter as a kid, I had a lot of fond memories of making cascarones, which are confetti-filled eggs. My grandparents would save the eggshells and preserve them so we could decorate them first, and then we would fill them, of course, and cover them with tissue paper. And then, of course, you use them later on Easter in like an all-out war, where it gives you an excuse to like crack an egg so hard on your cousin's head, and where you like build teams and you try to get that one older cousin that you're not allowed to like hit over the head any other time of the year, but you can do it this time. So I have a lot of fun memories about that. And also, of course, making tamales for Christmas is always a really fond memory and really special. And I think one day I feel like, you know, you have to carry on that tradition to do too, because it's really easy in contemporary times to just go out and buy them instead of like making them from scratch like my grandparents do. That's always really special. So tamales and cascarones. And then my sister Yvette over at Book Cave asked, what's your favorite trip that you've taken? And I think I'm gonna have to go back to my Barcelona trip that I took with Rigo. It was like one of our first like couple trips that we took as adults. And it was our first like overseas trip together for like over a week. I just have a lot of fond memories of that time we spent there together. It's a really beautiful city, first of all. I mean, there's so much food. There's so much to do. There's so much art, and you could go to mountains and you can see castles, and you can also see like beaches, and you can also get involved with the sports scene there. It's a really, really great city to like immerse yourself in for a short period of time. And I really, really love that trip. We have a lot of fond memories of that trip, and we've been talking about going back one day, but yeah, we'll see. And then she also said, why did you mess up my hair in that one home video from when you were like 5 and I was 3? Because your hair was a mess and you needed help. And that was my last question for this Q&A. So we've made it to the end of this video. So I'd first like to thank you all for subscribing and getting me to over 1,000 subscribers now. I appreciate every single one of you. I know how hard it is to trust someone to hit that subscribe button. And I really, really appreciate that and appreciate all of your support. Thank you for those of you that asked me questions. I hope that for you, it was at least a little bit entertaining. It was really fun to share a little bit of myself. And I hope that you'll stick around for more bookish content and more bookish videos. But with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye.